Hi guys, and welcome to Air Ability, your regular dose of lead therapy. And today it's a video I've been wanting to make for a long time. I've been wanting to talk about the anatomy of a sub 12 foot-pound Benchrest Air Rifle in the light and heavy rifle classes. Now, I'll be talking about using the rifle from a rest rather than a bipod. I will address the rules around using a bipod in a later video. But I thought I'd show you why we make certain decisions, what are available to us, touch on the rules around the rifles to explain why we are limited in some ways when setting up our rifle. So I had to go into the dining room because the shed was a little small, and I set everything up, and hopefully it'll be of some use to you guys. I also made a couple of little mistakes which I've had to edit to put right, but please bear with me. Talking for half an hour can be quite hard without making a mistake. Now, finally, I get a lot of questions on the YouTube channel in the comments. Please, can you have a look in the description, because I've got a lot of related videos in the description to this video that'll help you further. And also join the Air Ability Facebook group. There's a bunch of like-minded, knowledgeable people there ready to help you with your Benchrest adventure. I don't always get into the comments to answer questions on YouTube. So remember, if you're joining the Facebook Air Ability group, say yes to the terms and conditions to make sure we know you're legitimate. Anyway, you might have noticed my new shirt. Yep, this is my 2025 tour shirt, and as you can see, I'm going to be joined again by H&N and Anshut. You know, they've had an interest in me and supported me pretty much from the beginning of my Benchrest journey. Anshut, you know, Anshut's 9015 air rifle, best gun in the world in my opinion, and the H&N pellets. You know, every medal I have won has been with a H&N pellet and an Anshut's 9015. So I think that shows testament to the quality of their products. And they also have a genuine interest in the promotion of the sport. So, you know, I'd just like to say to H&N and Anshut, thank you for being my friend. Anyway, there's a new guys on the block this season, Falcon Optical Systems. They have come along for the ride. On top of my 9015 that shoots the H&N pellets will be a Falcon X50. And as you know, this has been a mainstay in the FT world. You know, this thing's won all sorts of medals. It's legendary in the field target world. Now, to get this on my gun, because I wanted to be part of the, you know, the Falcon family, I've had to move heaven and earth. And the 9015's been on a bit of a diet and ended up with a carbon cheek piece here, because she's just a little heavier than the scope I was using before. But anyway, thanks for coming on board, Falcon. Great guys, you know, great customer service, you know, and into it for the sport like we are. So let's hop along to the dining room and talk more about the anatomy of an air rifle. Right guys, I've moved from the shed into the dining room because there's more room, the light's better, and it's quite difficult to film two rifles at once. You know, the long thinness of rifles, it's quite difficult to get them all in shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go start at the back end here, and we're going to move all the way over, and we're going to talk about all the options and why we do certain things in the Benchrest world. Now, just to be absolutely clear, I'm talking about light and heavy rifle, sub 12 shot as we do in the UK. Now, a light and heavy rifle, light rifle is under 12 foot-pounds energy, and heavy rifle is under 20 foot-pounds energy. But in the UK, because of the laws, to enable as many people to shoot as possible, both heavy and light rifle are shot at under 12 foot-pounds, just to make that clear. Now, we'll start at the back, and another thing I want to say is this is how I do it, and this is how my thought process, and other people's thought processes and reasons differ, but I'm having a little bit of success with it, and hopefully I could share my thoughts, and it might enable people to have a bit of a shortcut when setting their rifle up, and probably cost them a little less time and money in the process. So at the top here we have the legendary Chiappa. This is the Ratworks edition. I've done loads and loads of videos on it, and now, as you can see, it's evolved into a 3D printed stock that I've made. This is my first attempt at a full 3D printed stock, so don't be too critical. All I will say is it shoots great. And at the bottom, there we go, it is the legend itself, Tangerine Dream. This gun has done me very proud over the last 3 years, and you know, it's pretty much a member of the family, and you know, my wife and kid can go, I'm keeping this. I'm only joking, pet. Right, let's start at the back end here. So the butts, right at the tip here, at the butts on Benchrest Air Rifles, we usually take the rubber off because we don't want it gripping on our clothing, and we don't want it affecting the movement of the rifle and influencing the aim point. So there are two styles of shooters. I shoot down the side of my rifle in a more traditional manner, and other shooters sit behind the rifle and lean forward. And it's up to them how you do it. Both styles are equally as accurate. It's just about what you feel comfortable with. So remember, we don't usually have a sticky rubber pad on the butt. On Tangerine Dream here, that's been replaced for lightness by a sheet of 3mm carbon cut to shape. Some people use aluminium if you've got enough weight, because remember, the light rifles have to be under 10.5 pounds, and the heavy rifles have to be under 15 pounds. What I will say is, most of us, because we all shoot at 12 foot-pounds in the UK, we usually set our rifles up to light rifle class and shoot them in both classes. What I've done here, both my rifles here weigh under 10.5 pounds. So, as I said, to save some weight, I have removed the aluminium butt cap and I put a carbon one on. Now, obviously, the printed stock doesn't have a butt cap because it's incorporated into the design. Now, for the butt here, right at the bottom here, the bottom edge, if the bottom of the butt is flat where it touches the bag, it can't be any more than 25mm wide. So you need to check that before you come to a competition. If it has a curve butt, and there's only a small proportion of that curve is in contact with the bag, it can be any width, because you can't really measure, you know, it's going to be less than an inch, isn't it, what's in contact with the bag if the butt is curved. Now remember also, we mostly go for flat butts because that helps us get into the rules easier. Now, you can have a butt that's inclined like that, you can have a butt that's inclined like that, or a flat one like that, but you can't have a concave butt, you know, like some of these more modern design rifles where there's like a little scalloped bit out of the butt. Now that is because that would hug your back bag, and but you can have a butt that curves outwards like a U, because that wouldn't hug the bag. So remember, you know, just to be careful, these new modern butts with a concave is not legal when you are shooting in Benchrest UK events or World Rules events, because remember, Benchrest UK shoots to World Rules events. So yeah, so the butt, remember, 25mm at the bottom, can't be concave. Apart from diet and exercise, there are many ways to combat a concave butt and make them acceptable for World Benchrest rules. As you can see here, I've fitted a commercially available bag rider into the concave. But it can be even simpler than that. I just got a strip of metal on this gun here, and I screwed it into the base of the pistol grip and stretched it all the way to the back of the butt. And as you can see here, it gives you that straight line that I've been talking about that fits into the bag. Just make sure you get a bit of metal that's 25mm or less wide. But if you really want to go posh, there are commercially available bag riders. You know, guys on eBay sell these. If you're lucky and you know somebody who does a bit of engineering, they can knock you one of these up. This is the beauty of Benchrest. It's all about building your own gear and being original and having a rifle that suits you, that basically nobody else has. Now cheek piece, most shooters shoot like this. Imagine my cheek piece isn't here. Most Benchrest shooters shoot with just a very thin butt like this, and that's so they can float the head behind the scope and they're not touching the gun any more than they have to, and they're not influencing the aim of the gun with their cheek. Now I don't have a very strong neck, so I have to have a cheek piece, otherwise I get a bit of neck ache. Now I have replaced my original cheek piece here, so that's my original cheek piece, and I've replaced it with a bit of angular carbon here. Now it might look a bit strange, but that has a sound rationale behind it. It's very similar to what 10-meter indoor air rifle shooters use. They use a very abrupt cheek piece to make sure they get really good cheek weld and align the eye correctly to the scope. So that's my rationale behind it. Now I must admit, I wished I'd moved over a while ago to this abrupt cheek piece because it's far easier to use. And the reason behind it, we'll get into it later, is I put a bigger scope on. So I needed to save some weight somewhere. So these printed stocks here, this printed stock here has a core like this, an aluminium core running all the way through it. And I printed 1, 2, 3 pieces off, and they've slid onto that aluminium core and been glued onto it. Now the fantastic thing about printing your own stock is you can influence the level of infill, which is the density of the plastic, to get the weight you want, so you can save weight on the stock to get a heavier scope on. And that's what I've done here. So just if you're wondering how the stock works, there's a core of aluminium runs through it, which keeps it absolutely rigid. And to be honest, this stock shoots as good as that stock, although it might not look as good. Now moving forward here, we've done the butt and the cheek piece, the grip here. Now this is where things start to get a bit funky and a bit different with some shooters. So we have what we'll all recognise here as a traditional gun grip, a rifle grip here. This is left-handed because all the best shooters are left-handed. And this has a thumbs up position, so I shoot like that with my thumb up, and I nip between my thumb and the trigger, and I pinch to get really good trigger control. Now that's how I shoot, that's how I'm comfortable. What I will say is the indentation for my palm and everything, more about than having a comfortable fit, it's more about getting rid of the bulk of my hand so it's not influencing the rifle in any way. Remember, I'm only trying to touch it with the tip of my thumb and the tip of my finger on the trigger. Now above here, this is where it gets really interesting. This is a little fancier, but this is called a pinch post. And basically it's not a grip, it's just something to put your thumb behind so you can pinch the trigger. Now this can range from anything from a simple aluminium post through to something a little more exotically printed like this. This is a, believe it or not, a screwdriver handle that I printed and stuck on because I thought it looked nice. But it just shows that you can customize things as you go along. And you don't have the problem of hiding your hand so it doesn't influence the gun because there's nothing here. And your thumb and everything just fits into the void. Now, there is a third skill. So we've got the normal grip, we've got the pinch post, and there's a third skill. Can you see the trigger guard doesn't go all the way around? There are a number of shooters don't even have a pinch post. They just have a trigger guard, and they hook their thumb on the far tip of the trigger guard there and use that as the pinch post to pull the trigger. So, you know, there are really a myriad of options about how you go about shooting your gun and getting the best accuracy out of it. And it's up to you to try as many as you can and decide which ones you like. Just while we're in this zone here on the guns, you may see a couple of things here. So first of all, we have various levels on the guns, which help us make sure that the gun obviously is level, because cant can really destroy the accuracy of a gun, especially when you're shooting at a 2mm dot at 25 meters. Now here I've got a little eye cup on my scope, and that's just to cut out that little bit of extra light from the side, which can be distracting on some ranges. Now let's go forward to the trigger. So I have actually done a whole episode on different triggers, and that the link will be in the description to this video. I use a more pointed trigger, which I feel gives me better control on my match gun. It allows me to really feel when I'm squeezing it, and my trigger is set down to lows about, I don't know, 50-60 grams. So what I will say is you can set your triggers as low as you possibly can, but the gun still has to be able to be safely discharged. In other words, it doesn't go off on its own and you don't get a negligent discharge. We do not want to have safety issues because people are going doolally and altering the triggers outside of the safe zone. So please watch my episode on triggers and get full details on that. And as here, we've just got the standard chopper trigger poking out there, and it might not be as finessed as the Benchrest trigger, because let's be honest, once you've shot an Benchrest, every trigger in the world is pretty much pants. They're the best triggers, but the chopper trigger, I've altered it up. I've had to do no physical work on it, and it works good enough where you get the best accuracy out of the gun. It's more about personal preference rather than the trigger affecting the accuracy. So, and then just above the trigger, we have where we load the pellet. And as you'll notice here and here, there's no magazine. Most Benchrest shooters prefer, although magazines are now legal, most Benchrest shooters prefer single shot loading guns because you can make sure that you load the pellet in gently, that you do not damage the pellet putting it in. And also, I believe the circular rotation of magazines don't align 100% with the end of the barrel, and when you push the pellet in, you can damage the pellet. And when you shoot the 2mm bulls, it makes a difference. It might not make a difference when you're shooting rabbits and things if you are more of a hunter. Also, I don't like the swing in and swing out single shot loaders. I prefer just a simple trough. Again, I don't believe the swing in, swing out loaders do align perfectly with the barrel every time. So that's just my preference, and I know people disagree with me. Now, so we've done the trigger, we've done the loading part. Let's have a look at the scopes. Now, scopes are a very personal thing, and I pretty much now this season have moved totally across to Falcon scopes. Hence, Tangerine Dream had to go on a bit of a diet because the X50 was about 150 or 170 grams heavier than my previous scope. There's a couple of things I like to do when I'm mounting a scope, and this is my preference as well. I like to mount the scope absolutely as low to the barrel as I possibly can, because I believe that if you do have any issues with cant, that the closer the scope is to the barrel, it relieves those issues and doesn't make the gun shoot off more than it has to. The mounts, this is really important. I have tried mounts of various prices, you know, all the way from budget to a couple £100 for a pair of mounts, and I keep coming out again and again with the UTG Pro because I believe they are stable in very varying heats, and they don't tend to move an awful lot. Once you've had them on your gun a little while and you've tightened them up a few times to make sure they settled in, I find these UTG Pro mounts pretty much never move, and they are my mount of choice on my two match rifles, because Tangerine Dream, there is a Tangerine Dream 2 which is as close as I possibly can to duplicating this gun. Now, you have the constraints of a rifle which stop you doing getting this nice and low thing, and sometimes you have to work around the rifle, and this is a good example here at the top. On the chopper, it's got a really short dovetail rail, and if you mount the scope on the front and the back here, it can be too close to your eye. So I put an extended Picatinny rail on, and it works absolutely fantastically. You've seen me using it in a lot of my videos, but for me the only thing it does is raises the scope up, which means there's a little extra height between the barrel and the scope. And you know, for me on air, if this was my absolute match rifle, I wouldn't class this as optimal, but it doesn't make an awful lot of difference. But in the game of bench rest, it's all down to marginal gains. And again, I have a level on the scope as well as on the gun to make sure everything is as true as possible. Now, I'm just going to move the camera so we can talk about barrels and the front of the gun. Now here we have the main stock, and as you can see here, the main stock is 3 inches wide, which is the legal width, maximum width of a HR and LR rifle stock, and it has to be completely flat on the bottom where it touches the bag or the rest. When I designed this gun, I tried to get as low as possible into the you know, the whole gun as low as possible, with it still having the correct proportions, so it sat between my rest and my back bag nicely. I've altered the density of the print so it can take this heavier scope, and I've actually got about 300 grams spare on this gun. It's more of an experimental platform, and I'm learning all the time. The Mark II stock is already being printed. Now, the cylinders on both guns are quite small. The Benchrest can only do about 55 competitive shots, because this is what's known as the junior cylinder. It's 2/3 the length of what you would normally have on an Benchrest 9015, which again saves me some weight. And because we won't ever need more than 55 shots, it works perfectly for the job in hand. This is the original cylinder on the chopper, and that's good for 100 shots plus. Now, the barrels, there's choice here with barrels. So most people use either, if the gun comes from like a target-based company, or the high-grade barrels already installed, will shoot with the barrel on the gun. But some people change them, and mostly they change them to Lothar Walther barrels, like on here. Ratworks has put a Lothar Walther barrel on, and this is, I've found that this shoots best unshrouded. And as you can see here, it's just a plain Lothar Walther unshrouded barrel. Whereas the Benchrest down here, I have the original Benchrest barrel on, well, one that was supplied by the factory for me, which was very kind of them. And I'm using my own patented, well, it's not patented, but I don't like to tell people exactly how I do it. I do shroud it. And when we're talking about shrouds and things, shrouds look nice, but they can destroy accuracy. If I put a shroud on that, it doesn't work. If I put a shroud on that, it works better. So it's all about trial and error. It really genuinely is. So just while we're talking about the barrel and shrouding the barrel, I wanted to touch on floating the barrel. Now, I believe, and many Benchrest shooters believe, that floating barrels give the best accuracy. And as you can see here, all the barrel bands have been removed on this rifle. Also, I personally like to float the cylinder, because I believe as the air pressure goes down in the cylinder, if it's bound to the stock, it influences how the gun shoots. So my best accuracy is obtained by floating both the barrel and the air cylinder. And also, while we're looking at this angle, you can really see how close I've got that scope to the barrel. And while we're down here, as I said, where it fits into the rest here, it's the same all the way down on this gun. It's 3 inches wide, flat bottom. But on this gun here, on Tangerine Dream, we're using another option where we have a front block on the gun. That was quite cool. I forgot to actually put these within arm's reach. So as you can see here, you can have wooden ones. You can see these on eBay, and they're quite readily available. If weight is an issue, you can make really small, thin carbon ones. You know, and remember, if you need to make any part, carbon is your friend if you want to save weight. So this front block actually is yet another option. It's 3D printed. It's on bolts. It goes into an accessory rail underneath. And again, I have used the density of the print to make sure I didn't go overweight on the gun. This is 3 inches wide, and it has to be 5 inches or 125 centimeters or more in length to be legal. Also, the area where you put your rest, which is usually the first 5 inches of your gun, the first 5 inches of your gun have to be 3 inches wide. No wider than 3 inches, so you don't get a competitive advantage and a more stable gun than everybody else. So remember, get your front blocks, if they're movable, all the way up to the front of the gun. So the first 5 inches of your gun are 3 inches or less in width. What I will say is, one of my Tangerine Dream 2 was very long in the stock, and I did have to cut the front off it to make sure it was legal once I put the block on, which again was it was a bit of a butt clenching moment, taking a handsaw to a Tommy Bennett Tilly Gunstock's creation, but it all worked out well, and you can't tell that I've actually done it. So we've done the front blocks and everything, the cylinders, the barrels. Now we get to the end here, which is another, my trophy cabinet. We get to the end here, which is yet more options for the Benchrest shooter. I prefer to have quick fills. This rifle here, the Benchrest, is actually designed for the whole cylinder to unscrew in the 10-meter Benchrest world to fill it. I don't do that. I have an extra probe fill installed on the end. The Ratworks edition of the Chopper comes with the same probe fill, so that comes in handy. I don't have to change my lead when I'm filling my guns. So we get to the end here, and you can shoot with a plain barrel. You know, there's nobody stopping you shooting with just a barrel and nothing else. But a lot of the shooters shoot with what's called an air stripper, and as you can see here, there it is. What this does is it removes the excess air from around the pellet as the pellet leaves the barrel, and allegedly gives the pellet clean air to fly through to the target. What I will say is these can take some initial setting up, and that brass bit there moves back and forward, and you need to adjust it to make sure it's actually stripping off the correct amount of air and not actually adding to the turbulence. But with a little adjustment and watching where it's shooting and taking a bit of time over it, you can really get some dramatic improvements in accuracy on some guns using a air stripper. Now here I've got the SAC silencer on here at the moment, and again I've done another review on this. This seems to be a very, very accurate silencer at a budget friendly cost, so you know it's win-win. The thing about these having a silencer on the end, at one point I was the only person on the Benchrest tour using a silencer, and that was because I practiced from home an awful lot and I didn't want to disturb the neighbours. So I've continued to use a silencer because I believe you practice as you compete. I have noticed a couple of other people who now have started using silencers, probably because they practice at home. But yes, so you can use a silencer. What I will say is the choice of silencer is critical. I have some silencers, again, that just destroy the accuracy of this beautiful gun. And then I have other silencers, such as the SAC and my custom-made silencer that I've got, that enhance the accuracy and make it shoot a lot better than if it was just the barrel alone. So the choice is yours. All these options that I've described here, it's about you going through and choosing and trying and seeing what's best for you. There's no recipe for setting up the perfect Benchrest rifle because everybody's different and everybody requires different things. Now, a couple of things I just wanted to point out as we finish, a couple of little hints and tips. Now, most people most scopes have a throw lever here, so you can adjust the magnification really easily. I love throw levers, but they're not as necessary on a Benchrest scope because we usually just pick the magnification. If our scope has a magnification option, pick the magnification we like and it never moves. On the X50 here, one thing I noticed, the supplied throw lever for the magnification also fits the parallax adjustment, which we do need to tweak. So I'll put it on there to make it easier. We don't need that big wheel. And here, these are called fishing coasters, and you can use them. They screw on, and it's a cheap alternative to buying a ring, a lever, if you just want to do something quickly and you don't have to 3D print it, measure your gun or anything. It just adjusts until it fits your turret or side turret or whatever you want to call it. And final thing, why I'm just having a cup of coffee here. Really enjoyed having a sit for half an hour and talk to you. Nobody ever listens to me for a full half an hour, so it's quite novel. It's quite a novelty. People get bored with me. Now here, Gary Chillingworth, he's always banging on about these. These are tyre weights, and they've got sticky on the back. Yeah, and you can break them up into individual weights or multiples of these weights. And what's magic about these weights is, if you're under the limit for your discipline, you can add these weights and hide them in your rifle to bring your gun up the weight, and also to change the balance and the feel of the rifle, which is really, really good thing. I have an absolute load of these around here on the chopper. I don't have any on the handshots at the moment because I was struggling to meet weight. Now, I hope that this has been interesting, and I hope it's explained a bit about the anatomy of a Benchrest rifle. This is about the anatomy of a Benchrest sub-12 air rifle, light rifle, heavy rifle that is shot from a rest. I will do a future episode and talk about the differences between, you can now shoot with a bipod under world rules for light and heavy rifle, and I'll do another episode and explain that because it is quite different. But the most traditional way to shoot is from a rest, like I have told you. Until next time, guys, remember the Facebook group is there. Please join the Facebook group, and it's best to ask me any questions in that Facebook group because I spend most of my time in it. I don't tend to pick the questions up on YouTube. So if you want an answer, join the Airability Facebook group, and remember to agree to the rules when you do it. Right, guys, I hope that wasn't too boring and give you some information that's going to help you when setting up or amending the setup of your Benchrest Air Rifle. You know, it's a long and complicated road. If I can shorten that for you, I'm happy to. What I will say is, you know, Tangerine Dream here, it's been nearly 5 years in the making. So it is an, you know, your personal Benchrest rifles are an evolution. They aren't an automatic thing. Because you spend a lot of money on a rifle to buy it out, you know, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the best of it out of the box. It's about evolution and making it fit you and suit you, and adding the accessories that complement your shooting and its accuracy. So guys, until next time, you know, take care and keep living that airgun dream. Bye bye.